Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 27 of Blue Leadership with your host, Dennis Nair. Dennis is a 26-year law enforcement veteran and retired chief from the state of New York. He's also a proud graduate of the 240th session of the FBI National Academy and the 61st session of the FBI Lead a Command Institute. The Blue Leadership video podcast is brought to you by the nationally ranked Master of Science in Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership program at the University of San Diego. You can learn more about the LEPSL program at criminaljustice.sandiego.edu. And with that, I'll kick things over to Dennis to introduce our featured guest.
Sarah, thank you. Great to be here. And today's guest is Chief Denton Carlson of the San Ramon, California Police Department. A little bit about Chief Carlson here. He started his career in 1998. He began with the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Department. In 2007, he then joined the San Ramon Police Department, which had just started. I can go through all his ranks and divisions, but suffice to say he served in all of them. Interestingly, he had a lot to do with community policing, social media, even back in the earlier eras, before it was really, as important as it is right now. And he also did a lot with the tactical components of policing, which I think is really a good marriage of the community policing, the tactical aspects, social media. 2016, he was the Employee of the Year, nominated by the Chamber of Commerce. And in 2022, he became the Chief of Police. Lots more. He has a Master of Science in, I want to make sure I get this correct, Emergency Services Administration. Without further ado, Chief Carlson, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I appreciate it, Dennis. I have to say, it's always uncomfortable when you have to sit and listen to someone talk about you. But thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate it. And I'm very happy to be here today.
Yes, sir. And I actually tried to pare it down just for that reason. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, and you're also a faculty member for the University of San Diego Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership Program. So that's it. I'll say no more. My first question for you, Chief. So can you just talk a little bit about your transition into the role of Chief? So now you're exactly 1 year in. You've came with an amazing background of having done all the roles below you. Can you just share with the listeners and viewers a little bit about how that transition went for you?
Sure. It was unique, even though there was no secret for the past 5, 6, 7 years that I wanted to be chief. I wanted to lead this organization. And growing up from when this organization started in 2007, being a part of it and moving up through the ranks from officer all the way up to chief of police, there's a desire to make this agency better and to really work towards improving it. And ever since I moved into the management role, I talked to the chiefs that we had along the way. And I said, look, I want to sit in your chair. And so there was a lot of preparation in getting here. And fortunately, I had some incredible mentors along the way from the chiefs that were here who really helped me do everything I could to be ready for it. And of course, you go through the testing process and the interview process and everything along the way. And then when it finally happens, there may be a little misconception that you're ready for it. But it is a different transition because, you really have the realization that every decision you make is impactful throughout the organization, and really it all rests on your shoulders. So those are one of some of the things that really hit right after I moved into the chair. But it has been a fantastic experience. I absolutely love what I do. It's interesting because I was driving my daughter to school. It was probably 3 or 4 months ago. And it was towards the end of the school year. And my routine is I always drop her off at elementary school and then I head into work. And just out of the blue one morning when I'm driving her in, she looks and she said, Dad, do you love your job? Do you like what you do? And I looked at her and in all honesty, I said, I absolutely love what I do. I really do. And I think part of why I enjoy it so much is because you have, in the position that I'm in, you have such an influence on guiding an organization to the point where you see is the best, and just working towards improving that organization and creating a culture within the building that really enhances how we're able to provide professional policing to our community. So the transition has been challenging, there's no doubt, but it's been enjoyable and it's been a lot of fun. I will say the one thing that really I noticed along the way is you have to be on all day long. And I noticed within the first month or two that I would go home in the evenings, and our family routine is we have dinner and then Jeopardy's playing in the background and we all try to answer questions. And I noticed that I started falling asleep on the couch at 7:15 at night. And my wife would go, just go to bed. I said, no, I'm fine. It's 7:15. But it just, the demands of what comes your way and the schedules and everything that happens with it. That was the one thing that really I took notice of is, boy, I got home and I was tired. But that has faded away, and you get into the routine of understanding exactly where the role is and what you need to do. But overall, it's been a tremendous transition, and I really enjoy sitting in the chair and being in the position that I'm in.
Yeah, and just talking to you, I think it's easy to tell it's your affinity toward what you do is very prevalent, and it's I'm sure an infectious leadership style where people who talk to you for just a couple of minutes can see it very quickly. And you're right. Being a chief is like drinking from a fire hose. It's 24/7. I remember most days, the minute set foot in a building, never even made it to my office before someone stops you with a problem or something's going on, and it's just the nature of it. And with your transition, so what do you think was the smoothest part of that transition to the role of chief? And conversely, then I'll ask you if you could tell me what the hardest part was.
Sure. I think the smoothest transition for me, and what went the best, was really having the trust of everybody within the organization. I had the advantage because I was here. I was part of the organization. So I wasn't a new chief coming from the outside. I was established here, and I'd been here for a long time. And I think that was probably the smoothest transition, is just having the trust of everybody in the organization. Because I took a lot of pride over the years in the communication that I had with everyone within the divisions that I managed, within the bureaus that I was the commander of. Because when I made a decision, or when I worked with the chief to change this or change that, one thing that I always focused on was making sure that everybody who was in line with where that change would impact understood the reasoning for the decisions. And so I built a pretty good foundation of trust within our organization. And I think that was the biggest thing. Again, a huge advantage that I was already here. And I'd been working with everybody for years who's part of our organization. But I think that was probably the easiest part.
Yeah. And, as a leader, clearly it's much easier when you have people all wanting to go along with the program versus dragging them, kicking and screaming. Mm-hmm. And when everyone's rowing that boat in the same direction, you get to where you're going. Mm-hmm. And it seems like your foundation of trust really was a huge asset toward that.
It was, and it really helped. We went through a tremendous transition in our organization. Within a 4-month stretch in 2002, we're authorized 8 command staff members. So our organization isn't a large size. We have 70 total authorized, 8 within command staff. And within a 4-month stretch, 6 of those command staff members retired. So there was a tremendous amount of transition and uncertainty really within the organization, because it was an external recruitment. Obviously, I was invited to apply, but there was that unknown of, well, is it going to be someone from the outside who's going to become chief, or are we going to have, I was the only internal candidate. So there was the up in the air aspect of where are we going to go. But being able to come in and having the foundation here of my experience and the relationships that I built along the way with everyone inside the building, once the transition started and I moved into the chair, we were able to really enhance those long-term relationships to set that foundation and really stabilize the mindset within the organization of, hey, this is where we're going in the future. And again, that trust factor was a big part of that success as we move forward.
Yeah, and stability is key. There's a lot of agencies out there right now that are lacking that stability because they're either dealing with acting chiefs or interim chiefs, and the tenure of chief has always been around maybe, 3 to 5 years, but it's less and less now just because of the demands and the strain. So it's not unusual to see a chief in a role for 18 months or 2 years just because it's a different environment. And my understanding is a lot of officers notice that lack of stability. So the fact that you can bring it is huge.
Well, and I think that what's been great is even in the interview process, when I was going for this spot, one of the questions was, well, what do you want to do in your first 30 days, your 6 months, and in a year? And my answer, without hesitation, within those 30 days was, I want to lay a stable platform and have everyone within the organization trust that the foundation is built. We're going to enhance that foundation, and we're going to build something incredibly special within this organization. And so we've been able to get the pieces in place within our command staff over the past year. And it's kind of a luxury for me as a chief, is I really had the opportunity to build almost my entire command staff with people that I chose who I knew had a common vision to where the organization was going. So taking that and enhancing that and making sure that everyone within the building is like, hey, we got this. Yes, we're transitioning. Yes, there's a lot of movement, but that also comes with a tremendous amount of opportunities all the way down within the organization. So it's taking that challenge, but making it a positive and working towards really creating what is become something very special within our organization.
Yeah, for sure. And a person from the outside, their 30 days would have looked much different, because that would have included learning the layout of the building and getting to know people by their first and last name. So that a huge leg up you had on that. And the converse question was, what was the most difficult part then of the transition for you?
Well, I think the most difficult part for me was adjusting to the demands. Relationships, I've been pretty good at those over the years and getting to know people and doing all those things, but it is the demands. And part of it is you wake up on Monday morning and you look at the schedule for the week and you just go, oh, I don't have any idea how this is going to work. And how am I going to fit these meetings in here and these meetings here, but still get things done within the organization that I need to get done. And so that was the biggest transition, was just the demands. And I think I learned very quickly two things. One was I had to maintain that balance, because I can see how without a problem, 60, 70-hour work weeks could happen in an instant. And so being able to find that balance of, hey, it's getting late in the day, it's time to head out, it'll be here tomorrow. And that work-life balance, I think, was critical for me to learn very quickly. And then the other thing that, it may sound strange to say, but having the ability to say no when the demands come in. And there are a lot. And whether it's someone saying, hey, can you come to this Boy Scout troop meeting and help us and talk for 5 minutes, or do this and that, and quickly realizing that all of these things don't have to be me. We have a command staff of incredible people. There's things that can be delegated, and not taking that full burden, doing as much as I can. Those first 6 months are critical. But again, I think one of the advantages that I had is that I was already established within the community. And so people knew me. So there weren't necessarily the drive for me to just get to know everyone in the community wasn't necessarily there, because I wasn't a new face. So I had that advantage. But I will say that having the ability to say, no, it doesn't have to be me. I can send a captain to this meeting, or there's a lieutenant that would be perfect to fit this. They can represent the department. I think those two things were critical, learning very quickly, because the burden is there. There's no doubt about it. It can easily be a 16-hour day job, and there's no doubt about it. But if you do that, the burnout, the fatigue, and it's going to impact everything that you do as you're walking around the building. There's no doubt about it. So finding that balance, I think, was a difficult transition. I think fortunately I was able to find that fairly quickly, and it really helped me along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And until someone sits in that seat, they don't truly understand and then there's your official schedule, and then the things that come up in the middle of any given day that then you have to make a decision. Is this something you have to go to? Can you delegate it? Let me put this in for the future. Let me, whatever it is, it's a lot. So I'm glad that you had you didn't have too steep of a learning curve on getting that settled.
Yeah, and it worked. I mean, we all know the law enforcement profession, the one thing that's predictable is it's unpredictable.
Yes.
And there's no two ways about that. You never know what's going to happen in the middle of the night. You never know what's going to happen when you walk in the door and you go to your office and you say hi to people along the way, and somebody says, hey, do you have just a second? And then you go in and the door closes behind you. You're like, oh boy, well, let's figure it out.
Yes.
So it's predictably unpredictable, and it's just managing, really making sure that all the resources are there and you're dedicating your time to the appropriate spots.
And perfect segue. So when we say appropriate spots, one of the most important things that any leader can do is focus on officer wellness. And I say this so many times that, it's never a box to check. It has to really be a philosophy. It's not a one and done. It's the culture of the organization. And you and I talked a bit offline about culture, which we'll talk a little bit more later on. But, the culture is so important that the officers know that their chief respects the importance of wellness and how whether they, schedule shifts or make EAP and counseling available, or, look at things in a holistic manner. And we talked about how busy you are, but you still left yourself time to be the chair of the Officer Wellness and Resiliency Committee. And I would love for you to just share a little bit about, one, why that's important, and two, what you do as the chair of that committee.
Sure. So I'm incredibly fortunate that within the California Police Chiefs Association, when I was an associate member as a captain within our organization, I was able to become involved in a newly formed committee on officer wellness and resiliency. And so it's a group that really focuses on what organizations can do to better the environment, to better the mental health, and really the overall wellness of all of their employees, non-sworn, sworn, administrative staff, whatever it is. And so I've been fortunate, one of the biggest advocates for this is Chief Neil Gang from the Pinole Police Department. And we're fortunate we're in the same county. And Neil goes throughout the country talking on the importance of wellness. And he was chairing the committee, and he asked me to come on as the co-chair. And we have a very shared philosophy of how critical it is, because you cannot ignore the fact that what is happening outside, and the outside influences, whether it's something at home or something at work, something you've experienced, something that you've been a part of, a critical incident, those things impact us in such incredible ways. And within the law enforcement profession, the transition, and Dennis, you've seen it over the last 10, 15 years, maybe even specifically within the last 5 years, of focusing on that mental health is critical. As an organization, we started a peer support group. It's got to be 5 or 6 years ago now. And I cannot be more impressed with the professionalism of the people within that group, and really the support from command staff and our organizational, just getting behind that program to ensure that we're taking care of everyone in the best way possible. Within our organization, we do a significant amount of training, and it's fortunate based on our schedules. We do about 100 hours of training every year for every officer, corporal, and sergeant within our group. And for the last 2 years, in May of every year, to coincide with Mental Health Awareness Month, we provide a wellness training day. So the officers have 10 hours of wellness training that they come in, and it may sound strange, it may sound outside of the box, but they go through yoga. They go through mindfulness exercises. We have a financial expert come in and talk about the importance of financial wellness. This last May, when we did it, everybody went out on a nature hike. We went to the hillside outside of San Ramon, a couple miles from our police department, and they went on a 2 or 3 mile hike up in the hills. And it's just the concept of, hey, you need to make sure every aspect is going well in your life, because it will transition into your work, into everything. And so it's really building that culture. And I mentioned it a few times here, and I think people are probably getting an understanding of how important culture is to me. But it's all building that culture of really being okay to say I'm not okay, and to reach out, and having the network built that, hey, we just had a critical incident where officers saw something that could be really impactful, whatever it may be. And it's reaching out to the peer support group and saying, hey, the swing shift folks today just had this call for service. Let's make sure we're checking on them and that they're okay. And if we need to have a debriefing on it, or we need to come in and have one of our professionals that we have on retainer come in and really help everybody along the way, just to make sure everybody's okay. But it's a cultural thing, because it covers so many different components. But the Officer Wellness and Resiliency Committee has been fantastic in spearheading that throughout the state of California. We were fortunate enough to host a summit a year and a half ago here in San Ramon, where we invited people from all over the state to come in and just have an entire day of different officer wellness strategies they can take back to their department. We did it in Southern California this May, and then it's coming back up to San Ramon in May 2024 to really keep that ball rolling and keep that momentum going forward, to ensure that everybody who's in this profession is being taken care of, and they're all in a good place. Because we mentioned this before, when your head isn't in a good place, it's going to affect you in so many different ways. And it's really is a passion for me, as I'm sure it comes across right now. But it's making sure that everybody is taken care of and is the best that they can be inside and outside of work.
Yeah, so much to unravel. I mean, it's clear that you have your priorities in order, because I like that we actually talked just how busy you are, but that you realize this is so important that, you know, everything's predicated on a person's wellness. And you're right. For the people who say, well, leave home life at home and, you know, leave work at work, that's not the case. The two intersect for sure. And if there's not some kind of mechanism in place to, one, recognize it, and two, try to come up with a way to address it, then there's a problem. And, you know, one of the things we're going to talk a little bit about the LEPSL program, in which you are an adjunct faculty member, but in the contemporary issues course, we really cover a lot of wellness, and we look at the fact that, you know, the lifespan, someone who's in law enforcement, you know, could be anywhere from 9 to 22 years less than their civilian counterparts, and that it's a known fact that unprocessed traumas don't go away on their own. And there's just a myriad of health issues. And, you know, it's interesting. All these actuaries crunch the numbers, and there's a reason that they offer retirements after 20 or 25 years. It's because they know the life expectancy, sadly, is not as high as it should be.
Right.
And I guess what I'm saying is, with all of that, it's so important for chiefs to infuse wellness into every area they can, because it just doesn't come naturally. And the fact that as a chief, that's what you're doing wherever you can, I think is very telling as to your leadership style.
Well, I appreciate that, Dennis. But I mean, I'm sure you can reflect on your career and know that the strategies to manage stress and everything that was going on at work and home were far different 20 years ago. Yes. It was, where are we going to meet after our shift? And what bar is it going to be? I mean, realistically, that's what it was. And it's just so unhealthy. And there's so many people that, even though I'm still in my career, so many people that you hear about, that as sad as it is to say, that life longevity just wasn't there when they left the job. And it is the compounding factor of what takes place and what you have to deal with, what you have to observe, what you have to see, the shift work, the food that we eat when we're on gravy. I mean, everything that's comes into play on those, it has a massive impact on longevity. And being able to shift that and seeing the changes and the acknowledgement of, boy, we need to do things differently over the last 5-10 years has been enjoyable to watch. And now it's just, the mission is keeping down that path and keeping on that focus to ensure, you know, we can get that retirement as long as possible. and because there's a life afterwards. There's a life after we're done. And it's that second life that you get to experience once you've dedicated your 25, 30 years to this job, that we all want to be there for, once we've finished up our successful career and be able to enjoy all the fruits of our labor.
Well stated. Couldn't agree more. And, you know, one of the things you're doing is you're teaching also. And I think it's clear to anyone listening to this podcast right now, just that you're a very busy person. And you teach for those who may not know, or maybe are just seeing this podcast and not familiar with the program. University of San Diego has the 100% online law enforcement and public safety leadership master's program, which is for law enforcement leaders from across the country, from all ranks, a lot of them in the upper ranks, but some officers, some from probation, some from coroner's department, some from big cities, small, everywhere in between. You teach for this program. And what I want to ask you is, right now, with all the things you have going on with just your sworn status and leading a department, what is it that draws you to wanting to still take the time to teach in this program?
So it's interesting. I started teaching in the program back in 2018, if my memory is correct. I was in the post-command college for California, and Dr. Eric Fritzfold came down and presented about what the law enforcement and public safety leadership program was. And it piqued my interest. I already had my master's degree at the time, so I wasn't necessarily into diving back into a master's program, but you know, the interest level in being part of that type of a program that really is a focus on leadership, because I love leadership. I think it is just a fascinating topic to dive into, to understand, and being a part of that type of a program was a huge desire. And so I roped Eric into coming in and having lunch on one of the command college days and talked to him about it more and more. And at a point I asked him, I said, I'd love to be a part of this program. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy being part of the learning. And one of the things that for me, selfishly, that I love about the LEPSL program is every time I teach a course, I get 23, 24, 25, 26 different opinions on a topic. And when I'm able, and there are papers that come across that I read and review and grade, and discussion board posts that I review and comment on, that brings a different perspective that I don't think about. And I think that is from the selfish part of it. That's what I enjoy most about the program, is you get different perspectives every single week that you teach in the module. And the way it's structured from a faculty side of it, it's structured in a very manageable way, because it's a 7-week block that you teach, and then maybe a few months off, come back and teach another 7-week block. And so it's manageable from a time perspective. If it was continuous and it was every single 7 weeks, you were doing it over and over, I don't know that I could manage it. But the way it's been structured from my side has been fantastic. But it really is something that I take a tremendous amount of information from every single course I teach, just because of those different perspectives are there, lending things from different parts of the country, different parts of the state of California, and different ways to do policing, whether it's a budget course and it's looking at it with this perspective, or a conflict resolution course and looking at it and saying, well, that's a great approach. I like that. And I can take something from that and put it into my leadership style. And so those are some of the components that I really enjoy about the course, because like you mentioned, tremendous amount of experience in the course, everything from somebody with 2 or 3 years working on the streets, or maybe with the sheriff's department, and they're still working in the custody environment, all the way to long-standing 20-year veterans who are at the rank of captain or chief or assistant chief or whatever it may be. So the wide range of perspectives, I think, has been just a pleasure from my side.
Yeah, likewise. And you notice that problems are sometimes across the board, and then you just see different ways that they're handled, because the challenges are the same or similar, which is interesting. So you see you're not alone. Mm-hmm. And like in the course I just finished, I had students that were from agencies in New York State, where I'm from, mm-hmm. and large agencies in California, and in the middle, and the FBI, and all mm-hmm. these. And you like you said, so many perspectives, so many different ways. So as an instructor, I'm always learning as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we have a number of people in our organization who've been through the program. We have one that just graduated. We have 2 that are currently in it. And every time I talk to them about it, they're amazed at how contemporary the program is. Because sometimes you run the risk of having, not to disparage any other programs that are out there, but there are times where certain programs get stale. And the way the LEPSL program is structured, it ensures everything that's being taught is being taught at a contemporary level of what is going on in today's law enforcement world. And so that's one of the things that I think is fantastic about the program, and the way the courses are structured, the way the courses cycle through. There's always that opportunity to make sure what's being presented is applicable to today's law enforcement, which is a huge advantage.
And let's give that shout out again to Dr. Fritzvold. He's the one who selects the instructors. He's the one who looks at every course and makes sure that they're continually relevant. And when they're not, he redoes whatever it is. So I know you mentioned he was the one that brought you into this program as an adjunct faculty, and we got to give him the credit where it's due, because that's why this program stays so relevant to whatever the issues are.
It really is. Dr. Fritzvold has done an unbelievable job structuring and really making this program the example of success for a master's level program in law enforcement. And, I've said this to a lot of different people as they get into the LEPSL program, and maybe they meet Dr. Fritzvold virtually. And I've continually been impressed, for someone who was never in the law enforcement profession and never worked in law enforcement. The understanding of the law enforcement culture is just mind-blowing. Every time I talk to him, it amazes me how solid of a grasp he has on what the culture is in law enforcement, and the way he takes that approach and crafts it into the structure and the management of the program it's been a lot of fun.
For sure.
Seeing him succeed is every bit deserved. And he's done an amazing job.
I've told him several times that it would have been fun working in a patrol capacity with him and going to calls. It would have been very enjoyable.
Absolutely.
So community policing is huge. You've been a proponent of it for a long time, and with activities you do and the shared values you keep. And I'd love it if you could talk a little bit about what was it that made it that you understood the value of community policing? And sometimes it's called relational policing, of those relationships that are formed. It's obviously getting out there that the officers know the community knows the officers. There's this trust, there's this foundation. You're a huge proponent of that, and I'd love to hear just your philosophies.
So it's interesting you bring that up, because when you talk about community policing, my mind always goes back to 2007 when the San Ramon Police Department started. The first chief we had was Scott Holder, and fantastic leader, great individual, tremendous mentor for me. But the one thing that he walked around our police department when we started, and we were in a unique situation, you get to start a police department in 2007. Not too many people get the opportunity to be a part of something like that. But the city of San Ramon before that was a contract city. And for those listening who may not be familiar with how that would work, everybody who came down here and worked as a San Ramon police officer was actually a deputy sheriff for Contra Costa County. And the city would pay Contra Costa County for those deputies to work as police officers in San Ramon. Then they changed, and San Ramon decided they wanted to become a municipal police department. And the one thing Scott said when we started, and he walked around and he talked about this all the time, is that we will provide this community a Nordstrom level service of policing. And I thought that was a very unique way to put it, but it made it understandable. You know, Nordstrom is always customer service based, and that's the way we approached policing, and we've done so since. In the 16 years we've been in existence, we haven't changed that. The community will always come first, and it's approaching a law enforcement perspective with the utmost professionalism and ensuring that we're treating people with the utmost respect. We're responding to calls for service, and we're a police agency. If someone calls us at 1:30 in the morning and says, I lost my keys in the bushes, we'll be there with our flashlights and our spotlights, and we'll help them find them. That's just the way we've always approached it. But I think it's really turned tremendous benefits in our community support and also in our elected official support. And you can't minimize the importance of those factors when it comes to being successful in the law enforcement world. When you go to the coffee shop and you go to buy your cup of coffee, and the person looks at you and says, well, the person before already paid for it. This is a thank you for what you do. And it's those types of little gestures. And when people aren't coming by and you get the whole 5-finger wave and they appreciate where you're at and the community support. And I think it's because we approach it with a level of professionalism and a level of engagement that's critical to success. You know, you mentioned the community involvement that I had back in 2015, 2016. We formed in our organization a crime prevention and community resource division. And I was a newly promoted lieutenant at the time, and the chief kind of gave me the keys and said, run with this. We want to increase our engagement with the community. So we created our social media platforms back then. We enhanced our community policing academy, where residents can come, and it's a 13-week program to learn everything they want about our organization. They come in every Wednesday night, and we've been doing it for years, but it was just to take that and enhance it and make it even better. And it was a lot of just the community meetings, outreach, go out, be the face of the organization when it comes with engagement back and forth. And so it's that open dialogue that we, take pride in having. When we do something wrong, we're not afraid to come out and say that wasn't to the level that we expect. We're out in front of things, and we admit when we've had our failures, and the constant message is that, hey, we're just going to keep working to be better. And yeah, we didn't do this exactly right, but you know what? We're making these changes to ensure that we're going to be doing things right in the future. And so it really is the level of engagement, and it's that doing it in a manner that's professional and personable. You know what it's like, Dennis, is that sometimes all people see is a uniform. And I think when you can do everything you can for people to understand that, hey, there's a person in that uniform too, then that goes a long way. And, the approach has been there across the country. It's the humanizing the badge. And we've really taken that to heart and gotten out there and be like, no, get to know the community and let the community get to know you. Don't be standoffish. be there with a smile. Just talk to random people who are coming by and let them know, hey, we're all people. This is just what we do for a living. And that's gone a long way in really enhancing that community relationship. And we've reaped the benefits of it. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and your original chief who drew that reference to Nordstrom, that was ingenious, because Nordstrom, for the listeners, he started with $5 in his pocket and became a billionaire by focusing on quality and customer care. And so I just actually randomly saw something about that the other day. So that's the only reason I can recite that. But to do that within a police environment, it speaks volumes to why your agency is respected.
Well, and it made it simple to understand. You know, I mean, they may not be all over the country. I think Nordstrom is covering a lot of places these days, just about everywhere. But out here, there's Nordstrom stores all over the place. And you know what you're going to get when you go in there. It's going to be great customer service. The focus is going to be on the customer. And in a way, we approached it like a business, and the residents, the businesses, the community members are our customer. And how can we serve them in the best possible way? And so huge credit to him putting it in a way that was easily understandable. And there was no misconception about what the expectations were.
For sure. And let's face it, with policing, it's also a dangerous business, and there's predators out there. There's bad people out there that want to do harm unto others. And so there is that necessity to use force and to have proper weapon system and proper tactics. And you came to the chief's role with quite a background in the tactical aspect. And that's huge, because some chiefs don't have that. And that's really a disservice, because to be able to lead a department, but also know what your tactical capabilities can be and should be, your tactical assets, the equipment you use, how you store that equipment, how you train, it's amazingly important. And to be able to, I think I used the word combine or marry that with community policing is important, because if you have too much tactical, it looks like a military occupying force, which communities don't want and shouldn't have to deal with. And if it's just only community friendly, but there's no tactical component, you won't be able to deal with the bad stuff when it arises. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about just how you bring that tactical aspect into how you lead a department.
Well, I think we went through quite a transition when it comes to, our SWAT team and our tactical teams. And we're now part of a multi-agency regional team with a total of 5 different law enforcement agencies in the central part of our county. And the one way that I always explain it to community members, well, why do we need this? San Ramon's a safe community. Why do you need something like this? And the one thing that I tell everyone all the time, and this was kind of the philosophy as I was going through and transitioning into management, is that, hey, it's the insurance policy that you hope you never need. And I think if you take that approach when it comes to tactical deployments and high-risk search warrants, that, hey, we're going to need this when it's really needed, and we're going to make sure we're ready, but you're not going to overuse it. And I think that's critical understanding. And we have a philosophy in this organization that we will never jeopardize officer safety for community service, for anything like that. We will never do it. Officer safety is paramount within our organization, but you can still do it in a professional manner. You can be tactical. You can have a SWAT team. You don't have to go in and be the ultimate force, and you can do it professionally and do it the right way. And, I started in the tactical world with the sheriff's department back in 2003. I'm thinking is about when it was. And I spent about 12 years in the tactical environment, all the way from team leader through sniper team leader, all the way up to where I was fortunate enough to have the command of our multi-agency SWAT team. And so having that wealth of experience, one, indirectly, I think it really helped me when it came to credibility within the organization, because I think most people here know that I would never ask someone to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And I think that goes a long way. But understanding that you need that tactical team, you need that expertise, because the last thing you want to do when something is going really badly in your city is not have the resources to be able to handle it. And when I talk to community members about that. I talk to elected officials about what we need for the SWAT team, the equipment we need. I do it in a way that it is that, hey, this is an insurance policy that we hope we never need, but we always want to have it just in case. And I think that's been a great approach to really find the balance of knowing that we need the equipment. We have to have these in place. Yes, there's a dollar amount associated with it. I understand that. And our hope is that we never have to use it, but we need it there just in case. And so far, we've been able to find that critical balance of community understanding, elected official understanding, and really knowing that, hey, we have these things, but we hope we never need them, but they're there if we do.
Yeah, and a lot of times, sometimes excessive force cases are from lack of training, lack of proper equipment, lack of confidence and skills. And when you have those tactical capabilities and assets, you're obviously doing a lot more training. You're building confidence. You're building different methods to deal with different situations. So it just, like you said, it just creates that insurance policy. I couldn't agree more completely of being able to deal with everything. And you look at de-escalation. It's easy to work toward de-escalating when you know, okay, if things go bad, we have a plan B, a C, D, and all the way maybe to Z and back. And that's through what you're providing from the chief's level.
Well, and I think there's an education component to it as well. There's a lot of misconceptions out there in the community, in the nation, about the tools that law enforcement have, that we have within our means and our ways to solve to properly and safely resolve a situation. And I think communication is a big part of that. We hosted open forums here when it talks about military equipment and those types of things. We host an open forum. We just say, hey, come on in and talk. We'll explain everything to you. We have nothing to hide. We're not trying to hide anything that we have. We're not trying to, pull the blanket over, well, we have these things and nobody needs to know about it. It's a secret. Well, no, this is what we have. This is our inventory. These are the tools that we have at our disposal. Come on in, let's sit down and let's talk about everything that we have. And I think from the chief aspect, there is an advantage to having the background that I do, because I can sit in that meeting and I can answer everybody's questions because I know what it all is. And I know what the advantages that it has to having that equipment inventory and what it can do with the full information at my fingertips to be able to just talk about it. And really it does come down to education. It's like, no, this isn't what that is. It's not a tank. It's an armored rescue vehicle. This is what it can do. And being able to really be well-versed in what we have in our inventory, because again, it comes down to education. And we haven't had anyone at any of the open forums or any of the meetings that we've held talking about what we have in our inventory, who's really remained adamantly opposed to anything that we have. And it really just comes down to education.
That's great. And I know for a fact that your officers appreciate having you at the helm with that ability to educate, because without the support of the elected officials and the local stakeholders, all the tactics and equipment would not be accepted. So I'm sure that's very well appreciated, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So, Chief, for the policing profession, what do you see right now as the biggest challenges, whether for your agency or for the profession as a whole, to overcome, and how do those challenges, how are they overcome?
So I think, we could probably talk for an hour on a podcast alone just on that question. I think there are struggles within our profession, which we all love. We love what we do and we're dedicated to this profession. But the one thing that pops into my mind immediately when you ask that question is what do we need to change? And to me, I think it's ensuring that we're building a positive culture within our organizations. And as chiefs and throughout the country, ensuring that the message that we're putting out to the people within our building is a message of positive culture building. Understanding that accountability is a huge part of our job, but being clear in what our expectations are, being clear in holding people accountable, but doing it in a way that builds the person towards a better future, and doing so in a way that builds trust within our organizations and really enhances what everyone is doing within our organizations to ensure we're serving the public in the best way possible. I do think, hiring recruiting, retention, all of those things are a critical factor in law enforcement right now. And really, I think the hiring struggles that we're seeing, we're kind of at the tip of the iceberg. And I think you'd be naive to see that that's not a potential major issue for us in the future. Because if you're 23, 24 years old right now, trying to figure out what you're going to do for your life, if you don't have someone in your close circle who's been in law enforcement, really, why would someone get into this job right now? Because it's been a struggle, and it's been a struggle since Ferguson. Really, there's been a huge amount of negative media attention. In some ways, we're our own worst enemy when it comes to what we've been creating within our profession. But we need to change in every organization across the country the culture that we create. But if we work as hard as we can to create a culture where the officers within our organizations or deputy sheriffs within our sheriff's departments know that they're supported, know that they're a standard that they need to meet, know that they're part of an organization that's moving towards a positive culture and positive service-based policing, then they're going to take that mental attitude from inside the building out into everything that they do on a day-to-day basis. And as leaders within our profession, whether you have rank or not, we can all think about the leaders without ranks in our organization, the people that steer the mission for those of us who are the chiefs of police. Those leaders have to be on board as well. And it really is creating that culture where people know that they're serving for the right reasons and they're doing things out there in a professional way. And I think one of the great phrases that I love is clear is kind. If you're clear about what the expectations are as an organizational leader, but you're doing it in a way that you're telling everyone, we're going to get you to that place because we want you to be the best possible person we have serving our community, then you're really going to be taking that culture to another level and ensuring that that's the message that's going out there. And it all circles back to what we were talking about in officer wellness as well. It's providing an atmosphere that encourages growth, that encourages, again, I'll say professionalism, because I think it's critical to our the success of law enforcement. And it's doing all of these things together to really enhance organizational cultures, because some of the things that have come about over the last several years, nobody's going to sit here and convince me that that isn't a result of the culture of an organization. One of my favorite phrases is the organizational culture will be reflective of the behaviors tolerated by its leaders. And I think that is critical. What we tolerate, we authorize, and there's no two ways about it. But it also is, how do you approach that organizational health in a way where you have to address issues, but you do it in a way where everybody walks out of that meeting that you've addressed the shortfalls and everyone knows, hey, we're doing this to make the person better. And the individual that may be receiving the counseling or whatever it may be understands that, hey, we're doing this because we want you to be better, not because we just want to drop the hammer on somebody. And I think it's that type of approach that is critical to law enforcement's success in the future.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I really think from a leadership perspective, you're explaining the why. And when they know the leadership's, their motivations are pure and that they're fair and they're consistent, I think that really goes a long way. And then a lot of what you said, there's so many intersecting lines. You talk about every, leaders without rank, but everyone there is a leader and everyone has the ability to recruit and draw into that culture, both for good and for bad. So hopefully when you have good people who are part of a good culture, they bring in more good people. Mm-hmm. And one of the hazards, I think, right now with this staffing crisis is that no agency lowers their standards of quality and who they bring in, because it can be a downhill slide really quickly if people who are at the chief level just try to fill vacant positions with people who are not suitable. And so I think having the ability to have every member serve as a recruiter, have a chief with a clear vision, and be able to draw in quality people, I think that's going to be key. And it seems very clear to everyone that you're doing all the right things.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up that exact point, because when I gave my annual report to the city council several months ago, they asked about recruiting and retention. And it's always been a topic to make sure, hey, where are we at? And I told them something, and it's the same thing that I tell everyone who applies to our organization when I have my one-on-one interviews with them. I would much rather hire a good person than just someone who has some experience, because you can teach someone how to do law enforcement. It's not rocket science. They taught me how to do it. So you can be taught the mechanics of this job. But I don't know that you can teach someone when they're in their mid-20s or 30s or whatever position in life. You can teach them how to be a good person. And I think that is critical for the future of our profession, is hiring good people, not necessarily somebody who's just done this or just done that and checking a box. It's hiring people who are quality individuals. And I have that philosophy for promotions. I have that philosophy for hiring. I have all those things in our organization. And that message is as clear as day to everybody in this building. I will take the good person. We can teach the mechanics of the job. You can't teach the philosophies of professionalism, integrity, and ethics. That needs to be a part of who the person is. And that is critical to our ongoing success, is hiring good quality people.
I fully agree. And then it couples so well with the wellness part, because it keeps them good people. And, I've said forever, an officer may have just a couple of moments with a person and whatever their connection or interaction is, and the officer will quickly forget as they go on their list of other calls for the day. But it will resonate with that person forever. And it will likely shape that person's image of policing if there's someone who is just a regular citizen that doesn't interact often with law enforcement. So how they treat them will set the tone for the entire profession, for good or for bad.
Without question. Nobody pays attention to the name tag. At least it's very rare. You just see it's that officer. I had this experience with an officer. Doesn't matter who the person is. And when it's a negative experience, it becomes that officer from San Ramon. It's not that one person. It affects all of us. And incidents nationwide affect everything that we do. Because when Memphis happened and that horrific incident came out, I was on the phone with our local legislators from the state of California saying, I guarantee you someone in our legislative group in California is writing a bill right now to change how we do that. And I asked them, I said, please resist that urge, because that doesn't reflect all of our professions.
Right.
But it does, whether we like it or not. What happens across state lines, what happens within an organization, it impacts all of us because we all wear the uniform. And what happens in Memphis, Tennessee impacts us in San Ramon, and you cannot avoid that.
Yeah. And just to put an exclamation point on that, when I was chief, I always, at both agencies, always followed the national news, because whatever was global was local. And even if it didn't happen there, wherever it was that I was leading, I knew people would see it and they would want to know, well, how do you respond to things like this? What are you doing to prevent this? And to me, if police leaders aren't learning from the shortfalls of other agencies, or the poor leadership examples, or poor hiring, or lack of supervision, or whatever, then it could be just a matter of time before the CNN cameras are outside their agency. So it's definitely something people need to be mindful of when they're in that top role.
No, and you're exactly right. And I think one thing as organizational leaders, one thing we can't be afraid to do is talk about these incidents. And I've mentioned it a couple of times, but after the Memphis incident happened, we hosted an open forum. And we just opened it up to anybody in the community. Hey, you want to talk about this? Come on in. We'll be honest. I will tell you exactly what my opinions are, and I'm not going to hold back. But having that honest conversation and being open to community members coming in and talking about what they've seen, I think goes a long way. And I think we can't forget the impact of that. Even if someone doesn't come in, just knowing that as an organization and as an organizational leader, that we are willing to sit down and talk with it, even if you can't come. I think that still sends a powerful message that, hey, let's talk about these things. And I will explain as best that I can why that's not going to happen here, because this is what our culture is. And I think it's having the openness to have those forums where people can come in and just sit down and talk for an hour. sometimes that is just an incredible message in and of itself.
Agreed. It's not only cathartic, but it just shows that a lot of times agencies will say open and transparent, but it's sometimes not always followed when whatever it is to be transparent about is not pleasant. So the fact that you're doing it on something that is clearly an emotionally charged incident, I think that speaks volumes, and I'm sure it resonates with the community members that you are truly open and transparent about anything.
Well, and I think it simply just comes down to actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
And that's an age-old philosophy, but it still holds true.
And as we're winding down, Chief, this has been an amazing podcast, everything you've said and the information you've shared. Leadership, there's certain people who follow certain podcasts. They have certain books that they've read and reread that they recommend. They have certain philosophies. Can you share with the listeners and viewers, are there any podcasts that you recommend, any leadership books? And I think we've talked about your philosophies throughout, so we could skip that or we could add that in, but mainly leadership books and podcasts.
So it's interesting. One of my favorite phrases, and it came about a while ago, and I think on my social media stuff, I might have that pinned to the top. But leadership styles and approach and philosophies, to me, it boils down to one thing. Leaders who do not listen will eventually be surrounded by people who never talk. And I have that sitting, I can look up right now, and it's right above my computer, sitting right up here, spelled out so that everybody who comes into my office sees that. Because when it comes to leadership, if you don't listen, you're just going to wall yourself off to everybody within your organization. So you have to be an incredible listener, and you should be a listener first. Be slow to talk, but fast to listen. And I think as a leadership philosophy, it's absolutely critical to surround yourself with people who want to talk. Surround yourself with people who want to argue. I love our command staff meetings. I have a great time. We get in some unbelievable arguments, and then we all smile and laugh and go, that was a great one. And then we walk out of the room and we have our problem solved. But as a leader in an organization, you cannot surround yourself with people who are not going to have dissenting opinions. That's how you grow as a leader. And if you don't listen first and you're too quick to talk all the time, you're going to be just heading down a road that is going to be just right with pitfalls. There's no doubt about it. And so being a listener, I think when it comes to leadership philosophies, is absolutely critical.
And I'm taking that all in, and I can only imagine what everyone sees when they come in your office and feels, in knowing that they have a voice and knowing that they can speak freely and respectfully, and that you're willing to listen. And I think that should be a motto somewhere that the IACP should put up there, because it's just, I think, so important. And Chief, what about a book or a podcast?
So I will tell you one of my favorite books of all time, and I'm going to get the first name wrong. It's Angela Duckworth, and the book is Grit. And I think that is one that has really stuck with me over the years, because the mindset of, hey, we're going to get through anything and everything. Doesn't matter. We'll figure out a way to get through. We always do. So things are going to go up, things are going to go down, things are going to be great. And then at one point that fire hose is going to turn on, and it's like, oh boy, what do we do now? Let's try and put that fire out as best we can. But the philosophy of just having the mindset of, we're going to navigate through anything that comes our way, we're going to figure it out. And that was one of my favorite over the last couple of years. That's probably one of the favorite books that I've read, was Grit. And I challenge anyone, dive into it, because it is fantastic. And if you have a chance to watch any of her TED Talks or any of her, the speeches and the things that she's done associated with Grit, I think it's tremendous. So I would challenge folks, dive into that one, because it's been a great one.
Yeah, and I like that. And I really feel that preparation that you're doing, you don't know what you're preparing for specifically, but you're bringing in good people. You're doing training and tactics, and you're engaging with the community. So when you have to dip into that reservoir of one or all of them combined, you'll be able to succeed. So I think that book sounds like one I'm going to put on my reading list.
It is a great one.
And last but not least, any podcasts?
Oh boy. I will say that outside of this one, obviously, to me, I tend to, in a way, I think it's a healthy thing. I tend to get escapes when I listen to podcasts. If I'm out walking the dogs in the morning or going for a run. So it may not be leadership based, but I listen to comedy podcasts. And I think in a way it kind of gets that breakup of law enforcement monotony. And I think that's a critical thing. So I would challenge everyone here who's listening to this, maybe not dive into having everything being focused on that, but find the things outside that'll make you laugh and that'll put a smile on your face. Because I think that goes a long way just to getting that healthy balance.
I love it. Getting that disconnect and just being able to chill and relax. Yeah, that's awesome. So Sarah and Maddie are going to come in and they're going to close us out. Obviously, everyone who listens to these regularly knows Sarah. Maddie is going to be taking over for Sarah, who I'm sure is going to introduce. But is there any final thoughts that you'd like to wrap things up with and conclude? You've covered everything from your career and your philosophies. It's clear to everyone that you love what you do, the value of training, the value of education, the value of community. What would you like to conclude with?
So I think, I walk around the building and everybody asks, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm great. I love what I do. I have fun doing what I do. And in a way, I think that has really helped me along the way. And so if I could say anything to anybody listening, enjoy what you do, have fun with it. We should be honored to be able to wear the badge, wear the star, whatever it may be. It's an honor to be in this profession, represent this profession with the utmost pride and have fun doing what you're doing. And sometimes that takes a little bit of a mental switch to have that positive approach. But every answer I give to anybody about how is everything going, my answer is it's great. It really is. And even if things are tough, it's still great because we're going to get through it and really enjoy what you do, because it really is an honor to be able to wear this uniform and to represent this profession. Have fun out there, be safe, but have a good time, enjoy what you do, and know that the overwhelming majority of the community appreciates what everyone listening to this podcast does, the service that you provide, and take that to heart, that the community appreciates you, because when something is going wrong, you're going to be there, the one that's going to be there to help and to provide that service to the community.
Wow, what a way to close. Chief Carlson, City of San Ramon, California PD. Thank you. I'm inspired by those final thoughts. Thank you very much for your time, for sharing your experience. And Sarah, if you'd close us out, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much for your time today. And to our viewers, thank you for being here. It's been a great podcast. And as Dennis mentioned, I wanted to take a moment to introduce my colleague, Maddie. She will be taking over the logistics for the Blue Leadership from here on out, and you'll all be in great hands with her. So I just wanted to take a minute to introduce her and say thank you again for this great episode.
Right.
And go for it.
I just wanted to say thank you for the invitation. I really appreciated the opportunity to be here today. Obviously, I have a passion for this job, passion for this profession, and I wanted to thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And if you'd like to watch previous episodes of Blue Leadership, you can find them on the video tab of our Facebook page or by searching USD Blue Leadership on YouTube. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.